Thank you all for joining today's meeting. I wanted to note that it is being recorded, as you may have just heard, and we will do our best to make this available while ensuring your privacy. We do recommend that you turn your cameras off if you are concerned. We will try to edit this video once it's done to remove anything that we feel like we can before we send it out. We also expect to have a full session, so please be mindful if you're logged in twice. The slides and notes will be available on our website, and we anticipate making this video available to students as soon as we can. I wanted to acknowledge all of the great questions and real concerns that our students have had since U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement's announcement of their new guidelines this past Monday. We received over 100 responses to the survey that I sent out, and it was very disheartening to read how this has impacted each of you. You know, how you are feeling is on the top of our mind right now. We do hope to answer as many questions as we can today and seek out additional answers as we move forward for any questions that we're not fully able to address. I also wanted to thank our wonderful team in our office who have done a tremendous job trying to respond to each of you and our community, as well as the support from our colleges and community for each of you, our international students and our program. This presentation is really through the combined efforts of everyone's hard work. So welcome everyone. My name is Thomas Torreskill. I'm the Director of International Education. Here's our agenda. First, we will go over the broadcast message, PCCD's position or our office's position and responsibilities. I will then quickly talk about recent developments and provide reminders since the policy was announced Monday. We'll then head into the primary part of our meeting. We have students in many different categories or groups, and we'll try to address as many of our student options as we can. I'm also aware there may be some of our new fall 2020 students who can find much of this information to be applicable to them. So welcome to you as well. And also, given the tremendous emotional toll this is taking on all of us, oops, I'm sorry about that. I wanted to remind you and inform you of our mental health counseling support. And then finally, we'll conclude with some questions and answers. We did have some questions that we received that we wanted to address first, that we received via the survey, as well as by emails, and then we'll open it up. Please submit your questions in the chat. We're going to try to combine them and sort them out so at the end of the session, we'll be able to address as many of them as we can, okay? So this is the policy on your right hand the screen. It's not the entire policy, but on Monday, US ICE announced a new policy guidance. This guidance was intended for institutions, but it was for us, our office and colleges to review and adopt policies for this fall semester. And it provided 3 basic scenarios. The first of which was if a school was operating entirely online, that students would not be able to remain in the country and attend that school. It states that students will have to depart the country or take other measures, such as transferring to a school with in-person instruction to remain in lawful status, or potentially face immigration consequences, including but not limited to the initiation or removal proceedings. As we all know, this has received the most criticism, and rightfully so, and has taken away from many institutions and schools from prioritizing the health and safety of our students and community and addressing this issue. But the second scenario is for schools that plan to reopen as if everything is fine. You know, nothing's happening, just go back to school. It's education as usual. And the third scenario is for schools that are adopting a hybrid model where there's a mixture of online and in-person classes. And you can see these 3 bullet points on the screen. It does get cut off at the bottom of the third one. Regardless of which option, our office must update each of your I-20 records by reissuing them by August 4th with remarks about your specific enrollments. And we'll talk about more on that in a moment. So here is where we were, PCCD options. On May 21st, the Chancellor announced that, quote, the majority of courses and services this fall 2020 semester is 100% online or hybrid, part online with limited face-to-face class time. Some courses that do not lend themselves to remote instruction easily, such as some career education laboratory disciplines, will be offered face-to-face where it is needed and safe to do so. Our office had reported, as required by CVIP, that our fall instruction would be online as a result of our limitations and the need to prioritize safety. Under this option, as we all know, this would require all of you, our students, to depart the country or transfer to a new school. This came as a surprise and shock to all of us. So in light of this announcement, we reviewed the language in the guidance, as well as identified the courses that are offered in person and hybrid. We have concluded that we will be reporting ourselves as a hybrid model since we do offer courses with an in-person component. As part of this, however, there are still rules that must be followed. F1 students can take more than one online class this semester. However, they want students taking, quote, the minimum number of online classes to make normal academic progress, or to make normal progress. Another rule is that you cannot take all online classes this fall and which requires you to have an in-person class. One of the more problematic notes or comments is that our ESL students cannot be in any online classes. In this scenario, as well, for students that plan on taking courses outside of the US, or for those that are in the US and plan to leave, you can still enroll full-time online and keep your status. So if you are outside of the country or plan to leave, you're still gonna be okay. But the ESL part is one of the more challenging and problematic pieces of this hybrid model. It doesn't fit. It's as if it falls into option one. In either event, our office must update your I-20 and certify that our school is not entirely online, that you're not taking an entirely online course load for the fall, and you are taking the minimum number of online classes. So, you know, Michael Goldberg and Matthew Jones have the incredibly strenuous task of checking manually each of your enrollments in order to make those notes and comments. And Nale and Carla, David must also do that for our new students. And so if there's a couple of issues that we're gonna have with that as well, or questions that we still have, but just know that that is also our responsibility moving forward. Now, before we get into the current student options, which I know is going to be, you know, the bulk of this, I just want us all to take a deep breath. You know, there are some options that we have. And since this announcement is posted on Monday, a lot has happened. First, just a reminder, the formal policy guidance is not a rule yet, and there could be changes, updates, or revisions. Secondly, it is already legally being contested by Harvard, MIT, and now the UC system. Cornell, University of Pennsylvania, or Penn, and University of Michigan are also taking action by filing amicuses. Third, this is making international and national headlines. Those are all links that are on the slides that you'll have available once we post them that you can then link to, including the Harvard MIT complaint itself. Our office is going to continue to monitor, review, and update as often as we can. Please make sure your friends who are checking emails from our office are checking their student emails. That is our main way to communicate with each of you. We cannot stress that enough. And we're gonna send them to those emails whenever we have these updates in these Zoom meetings. So please forward along, pass that information along if you have a student or a friend that just doesn't like to check them or gets them forwarded. So we hope that as this is legally being contested, that we provide updates on those steps at the appropriate times. Current options for F1 students. So again, I wanted to put these into four main categories that most of our students fall within. So if you feel like you're not quite in one of these categories, I encourage you just to find the one that best fits, but check in with us. One of the biggest themes I want to highlight is communicate with our office, with our advisors, so we can make sure we identify exactly what your options are. But these are where we believe our students exist. Students on post-completion OPT, students who are still active with us but are in the process of transferring to a new institution this fall, students who plan to enroll outside of the US this fall, and students who plan to enroll while in the US this fall. So whichever category you feel like you're in, that's the guidance for you, but please listen to the other ones as you may decide to leave the country, or you may decide to return or apply for post-completion OPT or transfer. So post-completion OPT students, in short, this policy does not seem to impact you. As a reminder, post-completion OPT students are those that have completed their programs by this summer or earlier, and have earned a degree, a certificate or associate degree. Students who have recently completed their program this spring or summer and are currently applying for OPT, post-completion OPT, are okay because enrollment is not required this fall. You can enroll if you'd like. Some of our students do. Sometimes students will do post-completion OPT and knock out some of the other courses for universities that they're planning on transferring to while gaining experience, but enrollment is optional. If you are on post-completion OPT and your EAD end date is arriving or coming up, or your post-completion OPT is ending, and you're planning on transferring to a new university or resuming your studies with us, this guidance does impact you. If you plan to re-enroll at PCCD or transfer out, I encourage you to follow the guidance on the following slides because you're in a position where your OPT is going to be done and you have to make a decision. Of course, if you're departing the country and you're completely done, it doesn't impact you because you should just follow the rules under post-completion OPT, which is depart within your 60-day grace period. So if you are transferring to a university or school this fall, please get clarification from your new institution about what your options may be. You want to learn if your school is going to be option 1, fully online, option 2, everything's normal as usual, or option 3, the hybrid model like we are. Now, please note that guidance also talks about if a school ends up closing and going fully online in the fall and what happens. So you want to be aware of what that school may be doing. As we see COVID cases increasing all through the United States, you want to be aware of those parts. You may also want to review the universities that you applied to and were admitted to and learn about your options there in case that #1 school doesn't fit anymore. Another idea is considering deferment of your admissions and apply for post-completion OPT. You will have to have earned a degree or certificate and work in that area. We have Drew Gephardt, our International Services Manager, who's incredible and has helped many students apply for post-completion OPT and can advise you on that as well. A second idea, if you are not unsure of actually transferring as a result of this, is to extend your program if you have additional courses to complete. And you will need to follow the guidance on the following slides as well. I would encourage you to just complete the associate degree or certificate that may be required for your program if you haven't already, and then possibly apply for post-completion OPT after this fall. Of course, our goal is that you go to your university and you're able to take your classes. But if you are uncertain about that, these are potential options for you as well. Students who are outside of the US or plan to be outside of the US for the fall semester seems to have the fewest restrictions in a lot of ways. Because it almost feels like the guidance was intended for you. And in our office, there is this option, and it's not necessarily the ideal one, but as long as you're remaining enrolled full-time from outside of the US, you can take online classes and continue with your program. You could also apply for a reduced course load if you're completing your program and be eligible for RCLs. But we're not sure when you might be able to get back. And we know it's difficult being at home or outside of the US while you continue your program. We know classes are synchronous, so you might have to be up at 2 in the morning. We also know that some classes have that lab component, so it may be hard to complete that. So we know it's not the best scenario, but we know it still is an option to keep your status and to continue your programs. One of the key things, again, you should be aware of is just keeping your advisor in the loop. Let them know what your plans are. If you have left, let them know let them know you're planning on staying home or outside of the US. If you plan to leave and decide to plan to leave, let them know you're going to do that as they have to make those updates on your I-20. You should also check your F1 visa before you depart to see when it expires and when you might need to apply for a new one. We understand that embassies may be closed, they may be impacted with long waits. So if you plan on, I'll just go home for the fall, it may be really challenging if you need a visa to get back here for the spring if we resume in person and depending on that new guidance in the spring. So keep all of that in mind. Now this is the area where I think most of our students fit. And so there's a few slides on this topic alone. If you have planned to stay or are returning back to the US for the fall, this is your guidance based on this hybrid model. The short answer is Students enrolling in our associate level courses, remember ESL has to be removed from this. With the exception of ESL 52, which I can speak to in a little bit, you must have enrollment in hybrid or in-person courses, and it is seemingly that simple. You must have an in-person class. How many has been one of the questions many students have asked, and I'll get to it. It kind of depends, but you may be wondering, how can I find out which classes are being offered? Our office has obtained a list of courses offered this fall that we will make available on our webpage to our counselors and advisors. We want to make this more available to you. We know it's difficult to find these classes when going through the class search. This list of classes are going to show what they are offered, which campus, the number of seats remaining, wait lists, and times and locations. So that way you can kind of plan and map it out. For ESL, we are still working on identifying solutions. If you're in ESL this fall, I would encourage you to email me directly with your anticipated class schedule and what your specific concerns are. This week, I'm hoping to meet with other constituents at the campuses to discuss potential options, as well as identify other ways in which our ESL students can continue their programs in the US if they plan to do so. But in short, due to the hybrid rules, I want to emphasize a few points about your enrollment. First, target classes that will help you with your educational goal. That seems practical, but it's going to be challenging. So try to target those. Try your best to minimize your online enrollment. Again, one of the other parts to that was they want you to minimize online enrollment while you are, to make normal progress in your academics. If your program appears fully online, we have an example of paralegal being fully online. We also want to encourage to identify co-ed or independent study courses. These courses often have internship or in-person components to them. Co-ed, if you may not be aware, is often associated with CPT or curricular practical training. I would encourage you to focus more on the in-person component than the paid component. I also encourage you to talk to the F1 student advisor if you are in this scenario. Let them know I'm in paralegal, there's no classes offered in person, what are my options? And they'll probably try to help facilitate that discussion. We will have those classes that are offered in person and hybrid, and they can help you identify potential ones along with our counselor. Third, and this is going to be one of the bigger ones, enroll as soon as you can. As we get closer to the semester, enrollment typically gets limited. But now that we have nearly 600 international students that may be in the same position, I'm also equally concerned that classes are going to fill up and leave each of you with fewer options. I don't want you to panic though. Just be thoughtful, be mindful, take the classes that are most relevant for your major and communicate with us. I know our enrollment is about where it normally is at this point of the year, and I expect it to increase. The other thing that your enrollment will help is with Michael and Matt making those remarks on your I-20s. And so please, I encourage you to enroll as early as you can and to identify the courses that best fit. So we will put the first Excel sheet up on the same page as well. The other piece though, this is not the only option. You may be thinking, well, I'm full-time, I can't find a class, or I don't need full-time. There are other options as well. Some of you may already completed a degree or certificate and have petitioned but working on classes. You may want to consider applying for OPT and taking the other courses again this semester. You may also want to consider completing your program this semester and applying for a reduced course load. Students in their final semester can apply for reduced course load, although you do still need an in-person class to some extent. And there's, again, the list of classes we can go over. The only other RCL that will fit most of our students may be the medical or illness one. You must have support from a medical doctor, a doctor of osteopathy, or clinical psychologist. And so I do want to also throw that out as an option for some of our students. There are other rules with that. You can only have it for an aggregate of 12 months. And we do have our mental health counseling contact for the summer on the following slide. The other option is potentially seeking out concurrent enrollment out to another institution that has an in-person hybrid class. Our office is discussing this possibility. Our goal is to provide as many options for you as possible so you can continue on whichever of those whichever path you'd like to be on, whether you want to be here or whether you want to return home or apply for a PT. And finally, you can return home and remain active if you continue with your enrollment. So those are the other options. And finally, we're still looking at possible solutions. We know that there was a tweet or some announcement that UC Berkeley is creating a one-unit class or considering creating a one-unit class. We're aware that there could be loopholes that we could try to utilize to benefit our students. That has never been our objective. Our objective currently is to make sure that Peralta and our colleges and our students are prioritizing the health and safety of each of you, that we are ensuring that you guys are taking classes that are helpful for your academic programs and that you're well supported. We're considering everything at the moment, but we don't want to explicitly look at loopholes. We want to make sure we are identifying case-to-case options for our students if you feel like you're in the toughest situations. So please keep that in mind as we move forward. For the summertime, your traditional mental health counselors on campus are off, but we do have Dr. Pamela Jenkins. That is her email address. She encourages that you put down Peralta College students in the subject line. If you click that email, it will automatically pop up. And so you don't have to worry about putting in the subject line if you click the email from the slideshow. Make an appointment with her and talk to her about how you are doing. We know there's a lot of emotions that you guys and all of us are experiencing. I don't pretend that the emotions that I have can compare to what our students are going through and to what degree, but she is available to meet with our students and will prioritize you. Also keep in mind that we have, I think, 214 participants in our meeting at the moment, and if everyone emails her, it may be tough for her to respond. So I encourage you to reach out if you feel like you need that support, and please do so. I think her contract ends at the end of July, so there might be a time limit there. It could go into early August. I haven't quite gotten that clarification yet, and that's when our mental health counselors on the campus will return shortly into August in preparation for the fall semester. We're gonna next do the questions and answers. I'm just gonna share some of the questions we have received already that I feel encompass generally what the main concerns have been. And from there, we can open it up to questions that have been put into the chat box. So for the first one, can the colleges open up face-to-face hybrid classes for international students? And the short answer is it's complicated. If it were that easy and that simple, the colleges would already be moving that way. The safety and health of students and community has been the focus. It also has to be vetted through the campuses and risk management. That is an option we are looking at, but it has to still go through hoops. There are classes that are currently there that we're hoping that you can target first as we continue to explore that option. Number two, if I am not or cannot enroll in hybrid or in-person classes, what can I do? That is going to be the biggest question that I feel like we're going to receive. And the short answer is connect with your F1 advisor, Michael Goldberg or Matthew Jones, to look at your specific plan in particular. We believe there should be enough seats for our students to have at least one in-person class. And as we move forward with this, there might be more options that are present. So we hope that if you plan to stay in the US and you want a hybrid or in-person class and you cannot find one, that they would be able to assist. We do need you all to be as proactive as well. If we don't hear from you until school starts, it may be very difficult to assist you. So we're hoping that each of you are trying to take care of this as early as possible. I want to just highlight that point too. Can I take one in-person hybrid class and be okay? The short answer is it depends on your program and your enrollment, but there are scenarios where that would be okay. Michael and Matt would review your individual situation. I gave the example of the paralegal program where it's all online and they can possibly do a co-ed class, which may be that one class that could be okay. But you might be enrolled in a class or in a program, a transfer program, where you can take math and physics, and they're asking, the government is to take the minimum number of online classes, where we might ask you to take both of those in-person classes or hybrid classes. So it could depend on your situation. Returning home concerns. I hear you. I cannot imagine the stress this is causing all of you with limited flights, the costs, the inability to enter countries in some cases, the health concerns, because you're putting yourself on a plane and entering countries and going through airports. We've heard about limited access to the internet in certain countries due to political unrest, due to restrictions by the government. We've also heard about time zone challenges, your synchronous learning. I wish I had a response for all those. If you do not plan to be home this fall and plan to stay here, we want to reiterate that we want to make sure we find options for you to stay here to complete your program. And we're going to do the best we can to make sure that occurs. If I'm in ESL, what should I do? Again, just to go back, we're still looking at solutions for our students in ESL. The ESL enrollment was incredibly low when I last checked, and students in ESL 52A or in our advanced level courses are on those certificate paths. So we might, if you're at that level, consider you an associate level student and modify your I-20 in that way. Students at the lowest levels, we will have to have a different conversation and continue to explore options. What happens if I stay and only have online classes? This is going to be one of the issues that Michael and Matt in our office might have is you enrolled in all the classes, they're online, you don't want to change your schedule. As the guidance is currently cited or stated, we cannot report that you are enrolled not entirely online if you are. If you're not eligible for reduced course load for medical reasons or do not fit with one of these other categories, we might have to take action in CBIS on that. It is our goal that that does not happen. And the only way that does not happen is through this communication. Michael and Matt will have your enrollments. We'll be checking out what you guys are doing and reaching out to you proactively to your Peralta student emails to make sure you are well aware of like options and communicating back and forth. Through communication, we're able to resolve almost every problem. And so please focus on that if you can. Like that would be incredibly helpful for them and for yourselves to try to find a solution where you're not only enrolled in online classes. Will my visa really be canceled? We've seen some of the articles that says your visa is being canceled if you don't leave the country. I think it's a misinterpretation of what a visa is. Your visa is in your passport. It is a ticket to enter the country. Your F1 status is what they may be referring to, but your visa won't be canceled unless someone at customs cancels it or the embassies cancel it. They automatically expire based on that date, but no one would be canceling a visa. It would be the status that is most at risk. I am concerned with being exposed to COVID-19 due to the in-person hybrid requirement. I hear you. We totally understand. That is what is most frustrating, even with a hybrid model, is you may have pre-existing conditions, health issues. You just may not feel comfortable or safe. Reach out to Dr. Pamela Jenkins, share with her your concerns. I don't want any of our students, community members to obtain or contract COVID-19. I really don't. We want to make sure we are all safe and healthy through this crisis, and this guidance does not help us do that. It is incredibly frustrating in that respect. Please share your concerns again with Dr. Jenkins and with your advisors. I'm outside of the US and plan to return. What do I need to do? Enroll in an in-person course. Let Michael and Matt, whichever your advisor is, know that you're planning on returning and when, so they can update your I-20 more immediately. They will need to know that you've updated to have an in-person or hybrid class, so they can make that change and they can issue the I-20s. These I-20s will live in the Global Peralta system, what we call GPS. They're going to download them there, where you should be able to collect them. We understand that you may need signatures as well, so when you communicate with them, they can coordinate back how to get those I-20s with the signatures on them. So please let your advisor know. For those that may not know, Michael Goldberg is the advisor for College of Alameda, Laney College, and Merritt College. Please recheck your I-20. If you log into Global Peralta System or GPS, it will also have that listed on your campus name listed as well. And Matthew Jones is at Berkeley City College. So if your I-20 says Berkeley City College, you would be reaching out to him. Okay. That concludes the presentation portion of this, and I think we'll open it up to questions and answers.
Okay, the first question asks, may I take concurrent classes at UC Berkeley or any UC school?
So concurrent enrollment is one of the options that we listed for our students. We prefer that you identify which classes we currently offer and select from those beforehand, as Michael and Matthew have to take additional steps to verify enrollment in those courses, and not only then, but throughout the semester. But that is one of the options that was presented.
I believe you may have answered this one as well. Does the hybrid class have to be related to our major?
The classes that they say you have to enroll in the minimum number of online classes to make normal progress.
Okay. How many credit hours may be taken online?
That is not specified.
Okay. Does an in-person lab count as hybrid?
Anything that requires, well, we are going to be using a list of classes where there is a facility ID, which means there's a physical location that students have to report to. Anything on that list that we receive from academic affairs will be considered hybrid. If it requires an in-person component, we're going to be using that. I believe COPED, there was a question that someone brought up through an email. If COPED is listed online but has that in-person requirement, how would we determine what that class is? We would determine that with communications with the professor that has the in-person component and consider it hybrid.
What are the minimum enrollment requirements for final semester students on a final semester reduced course load?
Traditionally, it has been the courses required to complete your program. And if you, for instance, needed 2 classes for your major or to transfer, those would be the 2 classes you would be required to take. However, they could not both be online. You would still need an in-person class. There's no guidance that states the in-person class could be a different class, though.
Is this regulation only for the fall, or will it continue into the spring 2021?
It appears that it's written specifically for the fall semester.
May we take classes not listed on our academic plan to maintain our F1 visa status?
We have students that have many different plans and programs, and those change often. We understand your SCPs may need to be updated. I would encourage you to check with the counselor about the classes you are planning on taking and having any class that you will take on your SCP.
The only classes that I need to take to complete my program are offered online. Does that mean I have to take random hybrid classes to maintain my status?
It's a good question and good way to phrase it. I would encourage students always to try to identify classes that are going to help them professionally. So even if you may feel that it's a random class, there are classes that we offer that may be in person or hybrid that can help you in your career or academic objectives, and to target those first. Learn a new skill. One of the options I traditionally advise students on is if you're a business major, take a computer science class because everything uses computers. If you're a computer science major, take a business class because almost everything's a business. So try to find something that's going to help you in your development as well, so you're engaged in that work.
At what point must we be enrolled full-time?
That guidance is very vague because it doesn't explicitly state. One of the questions we still have is, what if you aren't enrolled by August 4th? How can Michael and Matt update your I-20 with the remarks? We are waiting for that guidance, and there's a meeting with the SEVP field reps on July 21st that I plan to attend, and I've already submitted that question for response. I encourage that you enroll as early as you can. The normal rule to enroll is Matt and Michael must register your I-20s within 30 days of the semester. Of course, the last day to add classes is typically the Sunday before Labor Day weekend or Labor Day, 2 weeks after school starts. So try to get your enrollment done well before then.
Next question, if enrolled concurrently at another campus, how many units are required at each campus, both the concurrent campus and the Peralta campus?
I'll let Michael and Matt answer that one because I know generally it had a specific requirement and we had updated that recently.
Michael?
Yeah, the question again, I'm answering chat questions.
If enrolled concurrently, how many units are required at each campus, the concurrent campus and the Peralta campus?
Before, our policy was students needed to be in 9 units at Peralta and then could take more units outside at other colleges, especially if we did not offer the class or if the student was not able to retake the class at any of the Peralta colleges. I believe at this point, we are going to review, and this would be a conversation to, if you're a BCC student, please, send it to Matt. If you're Laney, Merritt, or Alameda, send it to me, and we'll work with you to determine what the other college needs and what we're able to offer. This is a unique time, so we are trying to find ways to support our students while we are following the rules and regulations.
Thank you, Michael. The next question says, will I have to pay normal price for credits even though the class does not have to do with my course of study?
Yes, tuition is $311 per unit, I believe. And if you have a 1-unit class, you would have to pay that tuition as well.
Next question. Currently, cooperative education classes are listed on Passport as only online. Will they be considered in person?
I believe I just mentioned that if the COPED classes listed online are requiring in-person components, our advisors are going to verify that with faculty to ensure that it does fulfill that hybrid component.
Thank you. If another COVID outbreak occurs and all classes return to only online, do all international students have to leave the country?
Great question. Under the current guidance, it appears that's the case. If we then remove any in-person hybrid classes, however, I'm assuming and hopeful that we'll have new guidance come out prior to before that event occurs, if that event occurs.
The next question is, how can I change my major?
With a counselor, typically with admissions and records, you can get it changed there as well, but I would encourage you to start with a counselor to discuss your new program and have that updated there. Once you get a new major through your SEP, talk to Michael and Matt who can update your I-20 with the correct major.
I am a baseball player at Laney College. My baseball class will be in person. Is that enough for me to remain in the United States?
I'm going to defer to Drew on this because I know he works more with the baseball coaches. Matt, would you mind repeating?
I'm a baseball player at Laney College. My baseball class will be offered in person. Is that enough for me to remain in the United States?
So the rule is you cannot be entirely in all online classes. So if your program requires you to be in person to play baseball, then that could, those classes can count towards your in-person requirement or hybrid requirement.
Okay, the next question. If I choose to return to my country, will I get a refund for the insurance fee?
I'm assuming in that scenario, yes, I believe Matthew and Michael, we had already talked about students who are not going to be in the United States this fall. You would be eligible for the refund. Matt and Michael, would you like to add any clarifying points to that?
Yes, so if students were to fill out the health insurance waiver through their GPS account, there is an option for them to select if they're taking classes outside the United States. They would then upload their flight itinerary and we can refund the credit in your account for those fees.
And if you didn't decide to enroll and you decided to discontinue your program, we would issue the refund as well.
I registered for a class that shows a date and a time, but the location shows online. Is it considered online or in person or hybrid?
Yeah, it's my understanding that when that occurs, it's considered synchronous, meaning the class will be delivered like this one, Zoom, where you will be meeting at that time, but online. I know some of the colleges have done a tremendous job identifying synchronous and asynchronous, but I don't believe I've seen every class explicitly state if they're synchronous or not.
I just logged on. I'm a counselor with Peralta. Was I correct in hearing that students that are currently working towards a degree cannot stay in the country? Only students that have completed a degree can stay?
No, that is not true. We will be having the slides as well as the notes that Annie Lou is rigorously taking right now, posted on our website soon with the information. I encourage to review back the information, and we're also hoping to create this video or have this recording available at a later point as well.
So far, I believe we've answered all of the questions that have been posted so far.
Okay, I see a lot going through the chat right now.
How many in-person units do we need exactly?
It's not specified. It just says you can't have an entirely online fall semester and be present in the US. The only exceptions to that would be reduced course load for medical reason. So there's no other exception to that, but there's no identified quantifiable number. It does state you can take more than one class or 3 units online. So it does leave it open to interpretation.
Can the hybrid class be half of a unit, or does it have to be 1 full credit?
There's no requirements on the specific number of units, whether it's a half or a full or 3/4.
There are many questions asking, when will we get the list? I
Yeah.
believe that it's been responded that we will be posting that online as soon as we have that compiled.
Yeah, the first list I'll put on the same page that we post the notes. So that way it's all in one spot for everyone. We need to create a page where we're going to continuously update it moving forward. And it'll probably look very basic in Excel because we just want to get you that information, and then we'll hopefully revise it to make it a little bit more searchable or user-friendly. I just saw the question pop up as more coming through. What page are we talking about? We will make a link on our homepage, as it'll be a new custom page. It doesn't exist yet, so we can't give you the link yet. We've been making posts with all these updates that we've had ever since we've went into closure and began working from home. We have a coronavirus update page where we put all of our posts. They go in order of when they're posted. This meeting notes, presentation, and the Excel sheet will first appear there, and we're going to create a separate dedicated page for the enrollment or for the classes that are offered in person or hybrid.
Next question. If I leave the country now, what must I do to ensure that I can return in the spring 2021 semester?
Well, the first thing you want to check is your passport and your visa. Make sure it's not expired or will expire soon. I don't know if you can be guaranteed re-entry in the spring. We don't know where we will be in the spring, if we will be remote, hybrid model, if we are resuming in-person courses. If we're back to normal, if somehow a vaccine is found and everything works and everyone gets cured between now and then, ideally you would be able to come back in the spring with a valid visa and no problem. But if that's not the case, you would also need to continuously stay up to date with our office and what the new policies might be moving forward.
Thank you. If we take a reduced course load, will we still need to take an in-person class?
It depends on the reduced course load. For final semester, yes. For academic reasons, yes. But for medical reasons, not necessarily.
Do we have to receive a new I-20 in order to stay in the United States? If so, how can I get a new I-20?
Michael and Matthew are going to be reissuing I-20s. What they're going to be doing is making remarks on the I-20 that were mentioned earlier, that we're not offering all online, that you are not entirely enrolled online, unless you meet, the reduced course load reasons. And the other comment, you can communicate with them about how to obtain it. They're going to be downloading it. They can digitally sign it and send it to you as well. Mr. Jones, next question.
Yeah, I'm filtering through them. A lot of them have been answered already.
And I would also add, as Matthew is looking for some other questions, that for specific questions and answers about your case, I do encourage that if you're a Berkeley City College student, you reach out to Matthew Jones. If you're a Laney, Alameda, or Merit student, reach out to Michael Goldberg so they can look at your specific situation. We know that there's a lot of bigger groupings that we can make, but your specific situation may be a little bit different than others. And because this is also being recorded, we don't want to explicitly talk about a student scenario that can identify a student.
Here's another question. Is there a way that the international department has contacted the campus to provide additional classes, whether online or, whether hybrid or in person?
That is one of the thoughts that has come up, and not originating from our office necessarily, but it's something that we've heard being explored at UC Berkeley. We understand that tweet that came out, as well as through campus members. And we thank everyone for their ideas. But again, one of the main concerns is the safety and health. That's the college's priority. And so it's not as easy as just opening up in-person classes or hybrid classes. There's a lot of discussion that has to go in. Having said that, it's a conversation that we have had and should be having to identify if that is a viable solution. We do have classes that are offered in-person hybrid right now, and we prefer to start going in that route to make sure that the classes that are limited and available are utilized and accessed before we begin to create something, if that makes sense. But I'm open to all ideas at the moment.
Great. A few more questions have come in. First one, if we are on a waiting list for a class and that class is hybrid, does this count to maintain my status, or must I be actually added into the class?
Yeah, you have to be added into the class because there's no you'll be in.
Sorry.
That's okay.
At what point are we required to apply for the medical reduced course load? Is there a deadline?
The deadline would be the same for that as it is to enroll in classes. I would encourage to communicate with Michael and Matt. Remember, there's no guarantee you'll get approved for that medical reduced course load unless you're getting support from a specific type of doctor. And so we encourage that you prepare for enrollment, and if approved, then you can respond to it. You can drop your courses or drop down to whatever you might be approved for. So we encourage that you start with your classes and then remove them if approved, as opposed to not enrolling and putting all your eggs in that basket.
Next question. Is it possible for me to apply for OPT even though I have to complete 2 more classes?
Unfortunately, you need to have already met the degree requirements. And so if you are still completing those degree requirements, say you have 2 classes this fall, you can take those classes and apply for post-completion OPT that will start after the fall semester ends. During the semester, you would need those 2 classes, and if neither are in-person or hybrid, you would need an additional class to satisfy the requirements for the semester based on the current guidance.
Can you please give us a summary for students who are staying in the US? We need at least 1 hybrid class in order to stay, or at least 9 units.
Good question. I'll kind of reverse the thought. You cannot be entirely online in order to stay. It doesn't say 1 class. It doesn't say 2 classes. It says you cannot be entirely online. And to minimize that online enrollment is to make normal progress. So that's the key piece. The exceptions to that would lie within students applying for reduced course loads for final semester, where you don't need the full-time enrollment, or medical reasons where enrollment would depend on the doctor's recommendation. But apart from that, you would need to not be entirely online this fall.
The next question I believe has been answered, but many students are asking it. What happens if every class on our SEP are only offered online?
Yeah. Again, we encourage that you identify other classes that could help you on your educational path, whether it's through COPED, having an internship or a learning experience, or classes that could help benefit you in other ways. And to work with your advisors on and counselor with that class or classes.
If I transfer to a college out of state, can I still come back to the Peralta colleges after the fall 2020 semester if things get better?
Yes, but I would caution you with that. If that out-of-state school closes itself, the same thing would occur there. If they end up closing and they adopt a hybrid or fully online, you would be in the same position you are now. So we have learned that transferring institutions is very difficult at this point in the year. We do encourage, if you are thinking of going out of state, to really look at how things are going in that state as well. But that is an option. But it's still risky. I mean, there's a lot of risk everywhere, though.
It seems like some students are seeking to understand why ICE would create this rule and why the timing.
There's a lot of articles that are in our slideshow. I encourage you to read as many as you can and to try to best understand it. My perspective is the government had been incredibly flexible with our spring semester. They understood the emergency nature, that students had to adjust to online classes, that schools and colleges had to adjust, and they let that stay through the summer. We had anticipated an update at the end of June. The CVIP field reps that will be meeting in July told us there should be an announcement at the end of June. It didn't come out. We weren't sure what kind of announcement, but we were told it was going to be about the fall. But how things had been done in the spring never led any of us to believe that they would make this type of a decision. And you're seeing the response by universities to it and through the reporting. So I encourage you to read it through. I can't speak to it, the specific reasons why they would do this policy.
My visa will expire in January. If the embassy is not going to reissue visas for schools that are online, can I study outside of the United States if my visa expires?
Yes.
Great. Will you guys help us to release the insurance hold for a few hours so we can secure the classes, since there are limited numbers of in-person or hybrid classes?
We haven't had internal discussions on that, given how quickly things have moved, but we can reconvene and have a discussion on that topic.
Just for context, there are 100 new messages in here, so
That's okay.
doing our best.
Take your time, Matthew. And again, I appreciate everyone's questions and thoughts and considerations. This is incredibly stressful for all of us, and I'm glad that we're in this position to be able to communicate with you in spite of the reasons why. So thank you for bearing with us.
There's another question about changing the major. Specifically, if they want to change the major, where should they go?
There's a few ways that you can change your major. And so just to clarify, you can change it through your student center, through admissions and records. Your counselor can update it on your SCP by making an appointment with the counselor. And then your DSO can update your I-20 with it. What I would recommend is meet with your counselor, get an updated SCP who can change your major on your SCP, and then communicate that back to your advisor who can then make that change on the I-20. So start with the counselor, student education plan, then go to your advisor with that SCP and update it there.
So I would say that that same answer helps answer the next question is, can I meet with a counselor to rearrange my SCP and make sure I'm following the rules to stay in the country?
Yes. And Todd Shima is the international student counselor. We know he'll also probably be inundated with these types of requests. So we appreciate your patience and appreciate the help of our campus college counselors who have always supported our international students as they may get similar types of requests. Please do not email every counselor for appointments. We know sometimes some of our students have a tendency to email every person to get a response back. We want to make sure that, if you don't get a response back, try a nice follow-up, but please be mindful of everyone's time as well.
If we decided to leave the United States this fall, when are we supposed to leave the country?
That wasn't clearly articulated. The challenge is they have different dates for different components. They want Matt and Michael to report whether you're online or not by August 4th, which is going to be incredibly difficult if you haven't enrolled, right? But classes don't start until 3 weeks later, and then they don't have to report enrollment until the middle of September. We are basically encouraging students in this position, if this guidance is not changed, to really look at the end of August to determine, if they're going to leave or not, and to try to leave by that time as well. But again, communicating with your advisor is the biggest thing you can do because they can give you the updates as this changes. I don't expect this to stay the same. There's going to be some changes, I believe, whether it's in regards to clarification about when students have to leave or what if they don't have enrollment. And so communicate with your advisor who can keep you up to date. I don't encourage that you leave immediately either unless you had already planned on doing so. We know that this guidance is being contested and it may be removed. We may have what we had in the spring. So, but I know it's stressful, it's hard. It's a really difficult position you're in. So whatever you choose to do, we'll support you.
Do we need to get a job offer to take the COPED class?
Michael and Matt, I'll defer to you. I don't believe so, but I'll defer to you.
So any student can enroll in a COPED class, but if you wanted to apply for CPT, curricular practical training, then yes, you would need a job offer to apply for CPT, but you do not need to have a job offer simply to enroll in the COPED class.
And a good alternative during these times when employment might be hard to find or obtain would be volunteer work. A COPED class just requires a certain number of hours of either paid employment or volunteering. Volunteering might be the best way to go. During the fall semester, you would enroll in just 1 unit of COPED.
And Rachel Simpson, thank you for your comment as well, who says, well, you don't need a job to enroll. So.
Excellent. What is the grace period after the I-20 expires? I don't know if that's how long is the grace period or what is the grace period, but either way, 60 days after your program end date is the end of your grace period. So before that 60 days ends after your program end date, you either have to transfer, return home, change your status, apply for OPT, or begin a new program. Hi, I just completed the application to transfer to the Peralta colleges. So how can I know if the classes in the schedule are online or in person?
Yeah, and that's been one of the trickiest parts is the majority of our classes, I think, are hybrid or online. And searching for hybrid classes in our class search there isn't a selection. You can't just choose hybrid. And so we have a query that we've gotten access to that we're going to be posting in Excel initially on our web page, where the classes that are listed as hybrid or in-person will be posted. And we'll be updating that every business day. So we're going to update it shortly after this meeting on our coronavirus update page. And then we're going to create a dedicated page where we are updating this table. It'll start off as an Excel spreadsheet, probably that you'll have to download at first until we're able to build in a tool that makes it easier to view and to search. But that's going to be our what we plan to do.
So this question is, I'm only taking prerequisite courses applying for the associate degree in nursing for 2021, but most of the classes that I want are not face-to-face. So is it okay if I take classes from other majors that can contribute somehow to my major? As per my understanding, it is 12 units face-to-face or hybrid that I should have to be legally in F1 status.
That 12 units face-to-face hybrid is the traditional rule if everything's back to normal, except you can have one online class. This current semester, since we're adopting the hybrid model, you just cannot be enrolled entirely online, and you are asked to minimize your online enrollment. So that is to clarify that comment. You are okay enrolling in more online classes, but you're asked to minimize that online enrollment and to enroll in not entirely online, is how it's phrased.
I've already taken the COPED class. Can I take it again?
See Michael nodding his head, so that looks like an affirmative. I believe, Michael, how many times are you able to take that class?
Right, a student could take it 3 times. If they're taking it a 4th time, they'll probably need approval from the Vice President of Student Services at the college that they are taking it. But yes, there's no problem with retaking a co-ed class, and there are many different, we do have an instructor from BCC doing multimedia, so they're specific to the majors, and then there's general co-ed 450 as well.
And let me just clarify what co-ed is again, just in case you might be joining late. That's cooperative education. It's a class that's typically associated with gaining work experience or internships. So it is more of an employment-based course to help you gain that experience in your area of study.
Does the job have to be related to my major?
Only if you're doing CPT. Is that my understanding, Michael? Any?
Well,
That's correct.
that is correct. If you are seeking, if you have a job offer letter and you are making money, you're going to make more than $1, then you're going to need to apply for CPT and COPED and get a Social Security card.
Even if you get $1, though, you'd have to do that. You can't get any.
$1. 99 cents, yeah, no.
More than 0.
Employment.
Yeah.
Volunteering, you do not need to apply for CPT. You do not need a Social Security card. You do not need approval from the government. You don't need approval from us. You just need to enroll into the co-ed class and then meet the requirements of that class to be enrolled.
Yeah, and just to re-clarify what I mentioned about CPT and co-ed is if you're doing co-ed, focus on the in-person component of it. Don't focus on the paid part. If that happens to fall in line, great. But it sounds like part of the objective of co-ed is that it's going to get you some experience, but also fulfill that not entirely online.
Okay, a few new questions here. What would happen if my hybrid class becomes online later or in the middle of the semester based on this new guidance?
Yeah, that's a question, right? If everything were to be moved online this fall for whatever reason, then we would fall into that first category, which is students would have to depart the country or transfer to an institution. That's how the guidance is currently written.
Great, thank you. Are there specific counselors on campus who have been trained to help us with our enrollment?
I'm quite certain all of our counselors have been trained to help all students with enrollment. In regards to international student issues, we've collaborated with many of our counselors on campus. Of course, it is summertime, and a lot of our full-timers are not available in the summer. I encourage you to reach out to the counselors that you've traditionally worked with, as well as navigate through the college system to find the counselors that may be available. And of course, we have Todd Shima, who's here, Angela Koo, who we've known she was here before me. She was part of our program before a lot of us were. So we know there are lots of advocates on the campus that in the counseling departments that are here for our students. And anytime you have questions, come back to us. Again, communicate with Michael and Matt so that way they can help clarify things if a counselor may not be fully aware.
If I would like to extend my I-20, do I need to show proof of financial support, or is my student education plan enough?
I'll let Michael and Matt respond to that.
No, but you do not. You need to have an updated student education plan that shows that you need to study here for at least one semester or possibly two in order for us to extend it. You do not need to demonstrate the financial resources.
Great. Do we have plans as the Peralta Community College District to sue the government?
That's a great question. I don't. That's a conversation that I have not initiated. We are in the process of communicating with our college presidents to find ways that we can support you under the current guidance, while at the same time reaching out to colleagues about this guidance. We are addressing shortly our Congresswoman Barbara Lee. So we are trying to reach out into different avenues, but that is a conversation that I hope to have shortly about if and whether Peralta is able to join.
Can you post in the comment section the link where the hybrid classes are going to be posted?
It does not exist yet, as the page has not been created yet. I will send out an announcement via email again to your Peralta emails with the link to the page. The first one will be on the coronavirus update page. The page itself will then have the post that will have the information in it. The post has not been created. So if you wanted, Annie or Mong Ling, if you wanted to drop in or maybe Mong Ling or Drew can drop in the coronavirus update page there, that's where the post will live initially.
A student is asking if they have on-campus employment, are they eligible to stay in the United States?
Unfortunately, employment is not enrollment. So unless you are enrolled in a class that then allows you to work on the campus, the employment is not considered enrollment.
Is there going to be a link to the recording of this meeting?
We are planning on reviewing that recording to make sure that personable, identifiable information is removed before we make that available. And if we're able to do that, we will share that out as well.
Excellent. And then the same question is asked several times about us possibly removing bursars holds or health insurance holds to allow students to enroll. I believe we've already addressed that has not been discussed at this time.
Yeah, but we will talk about that after this meeting.
I think we should also mention there are no more bursars holds on your accounts. There will only be a health insurance hold, and that will be addressed. But the bursars holds, we understand, are not going to be there for the fall semester.
And I'll get clarification on that. I feel like that's the first time I'm hearing that there's no bursars hold for the fall semester, Michael. Michael?
Sorry, maybe I'm.
So if a student owes from the spring semester, there's nothing preventing enrollment for the fall?
Currently, there is nothing. There are no holds. I see many students do have unpaid tuition, and there are no bursars holds that are preventing enrollment into fall classes. The only thing that is preventing enrollment is the health insurance hold.
And just so people are aware, the fees are paid chronologically in your PeopleSoft account. So if you owe a health insurance fee for the fall, you wouldn't be able to pay that until all of your previous tuition has been paid. So although there is no hold, simply paying the amount of that health insurance fee for the fall would not clear all your past due fees unless your payment was for the total amount.
Yeah, and I think maybe we will review this piece in particular and also maybe make a separate announcement. It's always been my understanding that if you may not have paid your spring tuition in full at this moment, you even if you were on a payment plan, it should have been removed and you still owe for the spring, and then you have the fall health insurance fee, you would have a bursar's hold preventing future enrollment. So we're gonna just double check that to make sure we're all on the same page before we share anything that might be considered misinformation, because it looks like we are not understanding this all the same.
Question is it possible for us to encourage more instructors to switch their mode to hybrid to provide more in-person courses?
Again, this question has been brought up and also addressed in the presentation, but just to reiterate, the health and safety of our students has always been the priority in terms of determining which classes should be offered in person or hybrid. The chancellor's announcement on May 21st specifically addressed they wanted to limit that to just those that were necessary. And that still is the focus. And so to open up classes still needs to have that in mind. That is a conversation that I'm open to having, but at the same time understanding that the reasons that we are not offering more in-person and hybrid classes is due to COVID-19, and to expand it would have to make sense within the confines of like safety and health. So it's unfortunate that we can't just follow our health leaders and experts to determine when it might be safest to offer more, and that we're put in this position.
Great. If a student applies for a final semester reduced course load, will one 4-unit hybrid class be sufficient?
Again, to speak to specifics, I would let Michael and Matt answer or address. The rule is you cannot be entirely online. So based on that rule, it sounds as if it satisfies it, but I would let Michael and Matt address that individually.
Yes, that would work. If you apply and are approved for a final semester reduced course load, one hybrid class would be sufficient. Many questions about the co-ed classes counting as hybrid. I believe the answer is it depends.
We want to get verification that there's the in-person component to it, if it's listed as online.
Okay.
All of you have great questions too, by the way.
Did you want me to ask like the specific student situations?
I mean, if you can generalize them more, sure.
So the question is, if I'm enrolled in 13 units and only 3 of them are hybrid, am I going to be fine?
I mean, again, that situation sounds like you're fulfilling the not entirely online. The other part of that equation is, are you minimizing your online enrollment?
We're caught up at this moment.
Okay. I appreciate all of your hard work and effort, and just knowing how stressful this is becoming and became. I'm really sorry all of us are in this position, especially you. I appreciate all of those that have logged in from far, from close, all the faculty, administrators, support staff, students, counselors, all of you that have joined this session today and provided your insight and guidance and questions and thoughts. We're all trying to work through this together, and hopefully there'll be some change, and that we don't have this situation materialize come our fall semester. But in the meantime, we are still proactively trying to identify ways that you can continue your programs here in the States and continue to study. And our advisors are here for you. So again, Michael Goldberg and Matthew Jones, thank you so much for facilitating that. Annie Lou is taking notes, and she's going to help with posting this online with me. Todd Shima, our counselor, will be the one that you guys, I'm sure, are going to communicate. and Drew Gephardt, our services manager as well. And not to mention, or I should be mentioning, Carla David, Nale, and Mongling Cho, who have also been on the front lines with this, and Angela Koo over at Merritt College, who has been an incredible source of support. So thank you all for joining today. I hope you guys have a good day, and please let us know any additional questions that you have, and we'll try our best to answer them as comprehensively as we can. Thank you.